is that log of wood just there attached to a rope, attached to the elephant's ankle. That hasn't worked, and very culpably, the Mahout has not applied the handbrake. Stopping? No, I think I'm owed 3, actually, John. The handbrake is that red cloth there with weights on the end. He should have thrown that over the head of the elephant and over the eye in particular, on the principle that if he can't stop, he can't see, he will stop. He hasn't. And so next time you're on a runaway elephant, just lean forward and ask the Mahout to apply the handbrake. It's as easy as that. Now, the end of the story, sadly, is when Shah Jahan is getting older. The last picture I'm going to show you is near the city of Ajmer, the holy city just there, because in that year, 1654, he's aged 62, he goes on a pilgrimage to the holy city. And this is what it looks like. There is the holy city of Ajmer. Here is Shah Jahan with a spectacular halo going on his pilgrimage, and there the detail, as usual, is fantastic. Now, some of you may know in India, things are referred to as auspicious. If an auspicious event, a happy omen, something very auspicious has happened. In front of Shah Jahan's horse has appeared a 13th century Muslim saint, Khwaja Minuddin Chishti. And that is, you can't get much more auspicious than that. And I don't know if some of you have had to deal with horses in the past. I have. And I know that if a horse lays its ears back, you're either going to get thrown off or kicked, or both. And I don't know if you can see that horse has its ears laid back because it had seen a 13th century Muslim saint. Now, the end of the story, sadly, is in 1658. Shah Jahan became ill. His 4 sons tried to overthrow him. The man who was most ruthless of all was his 3rd son, Aurangzeb, who finally, of course, he killed his 2 older brothers immediately, and he became emperor. I didn't want to finish on that negative note because Shah Jahan was locked up in the fort at Agra for the last 7 years of his life, and so I wanted to end with this, which is the opposite scene by the artist called Bola, in the fort at Agra of Shah Jahan's birthday, and I want to concentrate on this lady just here. And here she is, and in this manuscript there are a number, possibly, of little errors, but my favourite error, can anybody see an error in this picture? Yes, some of you have seen it. The feet are the wrong way round. If I'm standing in front of you, my big toe is on the inside. Anyway, I'll let you think about that. But this is, I had to finish on this because this is by Abid, that artist who painted that very gruesome scene of severed heads. This is just to prove to you that he also could paint happy heads. And this, by the way, is in the corner of one of the paintings upstairs. But I wanted to finish with my happiest and favourite image, which was this. Now, this image is by Balchand, who I mentioned before, and he was particularly good at depicting what I would say are happy elephants. I don't know, I'm not an expert on elephants, but I think that is a smile, don't you? And I think that's a happy eye. But anyway, what I hope I've shown you is the brilliance of these paintings, which were supported and encouraged by Shah Jahan, and by this time, as I say, Mughal painting was at its zenith. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful tour through the Padshah-Nameh. We now will move straight on to our next speaker, Dr. Marlow Beach, who will be speaking to us on early painting of Bundi and Kota. Marlow Beach is known to many of you in this audience as a prolific publisher on both Mughal and on Rajasthani painting. Has a very eminent career, took his PhD from Harvard, that worked at the MFA in Boston, the Fogg Art Museum at Harvard, Williams College, moved in and out of academe and university and museum positions throughout his career, culminating for a long tenure from 1988 to 2001 as the director of the Freer Secular Gallery in Washington, D.C. His publications are known to many of you, particularly the seminal publication on the Padshah-Nameh, in the Queen's collection has just been spoken about by Oliver, and one of his seminal works on Mughal painting. I'm pleased to say the Imperial Image is about to be reissued in an expanded version, which I understand is nearing completion. And most topically, in terms of the current event, the exhibition that we're all gathered here to study, Milo Beach, together with Eberhard Fischer and Dr. Goswami, who we're speaking to later this afternoon, these three served as the commissioning editors for a monumental 860-page, two-volume publication, which provides, if you like, the academic apparatus behind the exhibition, published by Atlas Asia in Zurich and available in the bookshop, I should say, along with our own Met publication, our own exhibition catalogue. So a great pleasure now to welcome Dr. Milo Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much. But I hope I can ask your sympathy this afternoon, because it is, and I think this may be the first time I've actually heard Oliver speak. It's extremely difficult to follow a talk as lively as that was. So what I'm going to do is pin some of my talk on, actually, although it's quite a different topic, on some of the pictures that he talked about as well, and sort of try to relate what I'm going to say to the Padschahnama, to the manuscript about which he spoke so eloquently and so entertainingly. I'd like to start by moving a little bit backstage. Oliver mentioned the portraits of painters that appear in some of these paintings. But I'd like to show you a picture of an artist's workshop, and I'd like to read you from a French account, a Frenchman named François Bernier, who in the third quarter of the 17th century was in India, in the Mughal Empire, and described these workshops as following. He says, large halls are seen in many places called karkhanas, or workshops for the artisans. In one hall, embroiderers are busily employed, superintended by a master. In another, you see the goldsmiths. In a third, the painters. The artisans repair every morning to their respective karkhanas, where they remain employed the whole day. And in the evening, they return to their homes. In this regular and quiet manner, he says, their time glides away, no one aspiring after any improvement in the condition of life wherein he happens to be born. Now, this is a rather Orientalist view of a kind of timeless, unchanging East, and certainly this exhibition and this exhibition project is trying to contradict very much that kind of attitude and to challenge it, and to challenge the ideas that artists were so isolated and so static in what you were doing. That's challenged by the exhibition, by the two-volume publication, which is, as John says, the basis of the exhibition, and I hope by this talk as well. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about an area called Bundi and Kota, two states that are in the southern part of Rajasthan. These were Hindu states that had to be conquered by the Mughal emperors, and it's this group of states, the conquering of which allowed the Mughal Empire to be built up. And it's frequently led to an idea in scholarship that the local schools, or the Rajput schools, or the Hindu schools, and the Mughal schools, the Muslim schools, are quite different from each other. And frequently one has exhibitions of painting that concentrate on one or the other. We want to show, and have tried to show in this exhibition and this project, that these are very, very tightly intertwined. Now, I'm going to concentrate on Bundi and Kota. It's a Sunday afternoon. Nothing terribly serious can go on a Sunday afternoon, even in the Grace Rainey Rogers Auditorium, so I, too, am going to concentrate, perhaps even more than Oliver did, on elephants. I'm going to go back to this picture, about which he spoke so well. The death of Khan Jahan Lodi, one of the great pictures, one of the greatest Mughal pictures of all, and a picture which I think one can say is highly sophisticated. The detail, for example, on the right has extraordinary portraits in it. It's a kind of study of human personality, a study of textiles, a study, as the manuscript is overall, as we have just heard, of things like textiles and jewelry and the textures of physical objects. It's a world that is socially and artistically highly, highly sophisticated, and one that has enormous opulence. This is certainly one of the richest, most powerful, and richest cultures in the world at the time. Now, the detail over at the right, we see these men, we see the beheadings going on, we see the minute detail that goes into all of this, but the man in the detail, surrounded by these extraordinary portraits of the men in this gray armor, but he's wearing orange, and he is a man known as Madho Singh. He's a Hindu that comes from the small state of Bundi in southern Rajasthan. I want to concentrate on him because it's him and what he might be thinking or what he might bring to his presence at the Mughal court, which I want to spend a little bit of time talking about today. He was a major noble. His father, in 1569, had given up the fortress that he was commanding at a place called Ranthambore that many of you may have gone to if you've traveled in India and in Rajasthan. It's a prime tourist place. He gave up the keys of Ranthambore fort to Akbar after a protracted battle. Akbar's memoirs say as follows, that Surjan Singh prostrated himself at the threshold. He tendered suitable gifts and the keys of the fort, which were made of gold and silver. He was treated with great favor and attained to security and tranquility. In this illustration, and so much of Mughal illustration is historical painting, is a kind of record of what was actually happening and the people, the personalities of the people that were making the events happen. What we see here is Surjan Singh in the center in white, bending down and touching the feet of Akbar, the enthroned ruler, who is under these canopies surrounded within a red-walled tent enclosure. Now, Surjan Singh, he attained to security and tranquility. What did this mean? He was made, even though he had to be conquered and he had fought against the Mughal armies, Akbar's policy was to incorporate such people into his realm, to make friends of them, to give them power, and thus to be able to incorporate, not to make enemies, but to incorporate them into his own system. Surjan Singh was given a governorship. He was given a governorship across India, outside of Benares in the north, at a place called Chunar. And I'm showing you now a 19th century painting by William Hedges of Chunar Fort, where Surjan, the father of Madho Singh, who we just saw in that decapitation scene, had been sent. It's obviously a very provincial area. It's not an area which, at least from what we see now, evokes the kind of world of the Padshahnama of Shah Jahan's memoirs that we see, so that, in fact, he was sent to the hinterlands, essentially. Now, while he was there, he actually was leading Mughal armies. He was a general in the Mughal army and military system. His son really sat and administered the governorship around Chunar and around Benares, while his father, Surjan Singh, was actually leading the Mughal armies in various battles. But while they had these territories, they commissioned painters. They worked with painters. They were interested, as the Mughal emperors were, in having painters come and work for them. There's a set of pictures. There are 3 pages of it in the exhibition upstairs. It's a Ragamala. I'll explain that in a minute. But we know, because of an inscription on one of the pages, that it was painted during this period at Chunar. Let me read you the inscription that's on it to give you a sense of the kind of documentation that exists or can exist on occasion on these pictures. The backside, written in Persian, it says, "The book, Ragmala, has been prepared on Wednesday at noon in the locality of Chunar." That presumably is the time that it was presented. The work of the pupils of Mir Said Ali and Khwaja Abdus Samad. These were the 2 directors of the Imperial Mughal workshops. So these paintings were painted by pupils of the masters, of pupils who had been trained in the Mughal workshops. Then it gives their names: Sheikh Hussein, Sheikh Ali, and Sheikh Hatim, son of Sheikh Pul Chishti. And then it said it was written on the 29th, or a date in the Muslim era, which is equivalent to the 24th of February in 1591.